2 years ago, Star Wars The Force Awakens came out. I liked it, but I had a couple criticisms, and so I wrote a blog post about it at the time. It was titled, "It's the Star Wars movie we need right now, but not the Star Wars movie we deserve." The major criticism that I had at the time was that the mere fact that the movie existed completely negated the point of the first 6 films. I still have that same criticism now with Last Jedi. If anything, Last Jedi has just reinforced my feelings on that matter. If you want to know more about what I mean by that, you can read the original blog post for yourself. I'll have a link in the description below. But I liked Last Jedi less than Force Awakens, and I have a number of new criticisms, and so I'm going to talk about those. Number one, the story just felt paper thin to me. It just felt like battle, 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 without really any reason. It felt like the director was just reaching through the screen and saying, "You guys, there's spaceships and lightsabers, and this is Star Wars. You love this. You love this." What I love is a compelling storyline, and that felt absent at a couple points. Which leads me into point number 2. The character motivations often didn't make any sense. The most egregious offender of this had to be Ben Solo. I know he identifies as Kylo Ren, but he's Ben Solo. His entire motivation is just that of an emo kid. It's, nobody understands me. I don't like my dad. Why is that girl better than me? I contrast that with the prequels, and as horribly acted as Hayden Christensen's portrayal of Anakin Skywalker was, the character of Anakin Skywalker makes sense. You've got a child prodigy who is trained and raised by people who are ultimately unqualified to do so, who don't believe in him. Despite this, he's trying his darndest to excel and work within the system. He signs on early for what's essentially an order of ascetic monks, which, believe that you need to live your life free of passion in order to remain objective and fair. And he's way too young to understand the implications of this. So naturally, he ends up falling in love and indulging in this forbidden passion. And so his entire character is motivated by love. And when he starts screwing things up, as he inevitably does, then it gets mixed with motivating by shame and guilt as well. But that's an interesting character. That's a relatable character. Ben Solo is not a relatable character. He's just a child. Another character that I really couldn't connect with was Finn. In this film, he is just a robot. He has no emotion. He's just one-track mind, must complete task, must do. And whenever his tasks go awry, he doesn't seem to experience any real sense of human frustration. When I get cut off in traffic for a minute, I get pissed off. If he is the whole plan, which somebody else has formed, because he's incapable of forming elaborate plans himself, when the plan goes awry, he's just complete next task. It just is totally unrelatable. The most obvious example is when he's trying to sacrifice himself against the giant battering ram in an effort to save the lives of all the remaining rebel forces. And right as he's about to do this, Rose, who's falling in love with him, pushes him out of the way to save him. But that's really only a temporary save, if anything, in the moment, because it effectively stops what he's trying to do, which is saving the lives of all of his friends, and thereby jeopardizing their lives. I would be pissed off if she had just done that to me. I mean, it's sweet, but ultimately they're going to get killed too. That was not a noble gesture as much as it was a foolhardy gesture. It is redeemed a little bit by the cheesy line that she follows up with, but the thing that bugged me was that Finn was not bothered by this at all. He just went from one moment, gotta save everybody, to the next moment, gotta save Rose. And there was no emotion to him. Third reason I didn't like this film is it totally suffers from what I call Dragon Ball Z syndrome. The power levels just don't make any sense anymore. I mean, Luke kind of does. I'll give you that Luke is like badass, best Jedi ever. Rey doesn't make any sense. She didn't make any sense in Force Awakens. But Snoke, who the hell is Snoke? That he can, like, simultaneously be operating force powers on two individuals and completely paralyzing while levitating one and mind reading the other. Like, this is beyond any level of Sith Lord that we've ever seen, and he's come completely out of left field. Who the hell is he? Where was he all this time? Like, you don't gain that level of power overnight. His character makes absolutely no sense. It's like beyond Luke's skill level. And then he's killed off. Which, that leads me to my fourth point, which is all the unanswered questions. Now, there were a lot of unanswered questions in Force Awakens, but I was willing to just relegate that to they're going to answer this over time. Like, this is going to be a trilogy. We've got plenty of time to cover this ground. I can wait. One of these movies has to pay the penalty for not answering these questions, because we're seeing the J.J. Abrams effect, where each movie seems to raise more questions than it answers. And some of the questions that we had are completely unanswerable now, like, where did Snoke come from? Now that he's dead, we're not going to find out. He's effectively a nobody, which is inconsistent with his character of being way crazy OP. Why is he so overpowered? Where the hell did the First Order come from? Why did the Resistance die out? Why did it die out between these last two films? Logistically, how is Starkiller Base possible? So many unanswered questions that are going to remain unanswered, and just it sank in during this movie, and so that feeling of disappointment made me downgrade my potential score of this film. There were a couple of redeeming things. The Luke versus Ben battle was amazing. If anything, it was short-lived. I would like to see more Luke. Rose, she's a fun character. I like her. She brings out a slightly more human side of Finn. And I saw movie critic Max Landis had a comment that the storyline is fundamentally one about failure. And that's an interesting theory to think about. I kind of like that perspective. But I think he's giving it a little too much credit. Ultimately, this movie felt like a failure to me. It just feels like the whole thing is trying too hard. It's too commercialized without much of a point. Like, the last films had a point. They had a cohesive storyline throughout. This just seems more scattershot.